In the early morning of October 17, 1945, workers in the federal capital and the province of Buenos Aires began marching toward the Plaza de Mayo and the Casa Rosada, the home of the executive branch. The military government did not anticipate the growing intensity of the public demonstration as the day carried on. The workers were there to stay until their demand was achieved: the release from military custody of Lieutenant General Juan Perón. The dramatic images of the descamisados, or shirtless ones, marching through the streets, and hundreds of thousands of supporters clogging the plaza and the avenue connecting the Casa Rosada and the National Congress, marked a consequential moment in Argentina's history. The political movement became known as Peronism, and the Justicialist Party embodied it. Perón's program, New Argentina, advocating social justice, political sovereignty, and economic independence, called for nothing less than a total redefinition of the social compact. Peronism permeated and penetrated all aspects of Argentine life, from the church to the public schools, from the football pitch to the radio waves, becoming the hegemonic discourse through which supporters viewed their world and dissidents shaped their critiques. Central to this movement's endurance were political rituals, and the annual celebration marking October 17th, the future Day of Loyalty, would be its centerpiece. The events of October 17th were the climax of a series of episodes that brought about the end of the military government and the ultimate election of Perón as president in February of 1946. On October 9, 1945, rivals within the armed forces demanded Perón resign from his positions as vice president, secretary of war, and secretary of labor and social security. He acquiesced, but on the condition that he be able to give a farewell speech. The government abided, even agreeing to broadcast it on the official radio network. The following day, Perón delivered the speech from the balcony of the Secretariat of Labor and Welfare, which had come to be called the Casa del Pueblo, or House of the People. In his farewell address, Perón spoke as a civilian who was deeply committed to working-class struggles for social benefits. He detailed the accomplishments of his time as secretary and confirmed that President Edelmiro Farrell had promised to guarantee all social benefits earned to date. Thus, further mass mobilization or civil unrest were unnecessary. Still, it was clear Perón maintained ambitions. He declared, quote, "We shall win in a year, we shall win in 10, but we shall win." He concluded with what could only be interpreted as a warning, quote, "I now request order so we can go ahead with our triumphal march. But should it be necessary, someday I might request war." Military authorities arrested him 4 days later, imprisoning him on Isla Martín Garcia, a small island in the mouth of the Uruguay River. Perón's arrest actually weakened the government, as he maintained many allies within it. The opposition and sectors of military bristled at this fact, with the former making even more strident demands. The military regime relented, declaring elections would be held in early 1946. Nevertheless, allies of Perón were either fired or arrested. The new Secretary of Labor and Welfare revealed President Farrell's promises were empty, while management refused to comply with Perón-era labor regulations. Unions across the country called for immediate mobilization and a general strike. This moment proved critical for organized labor, as the General Confederation of Workers, the CGT, met multiple times between October 14th and 16th to plot a path forward. The announcement by the military government that Perón was no longer under arrest, but rather in a military hospital in the capital, assuaged union leaders. Rank-and-file members, however, forced their hand. On October 16th, the CGT called for a general strike on the 18th. Supporters of Perón, within and without organized labor, decided not to wait even that long and took to the streets throughout the 17th. Spontaneous demonstrations were also held throughout the country, notably in La Plata, the capital of Buenos Aires province. Military leaders believed that the masses swarming the Plaza de Mayo would quit as the day turned to evening. They were wrong. The strike was so forceful that the de facto government gave in. The new Minister of War, Eduardo Avalos, agreed to meet with Peron, asking him to address the masses to help calm the situation. At 11:10 p.m., Peron went out to a balcony of the Casa Rosada and gave a speech replete with promises of improvements, and closing with a request for calm so that the workers there could return home peacefully. Peron famously pronounced before a rapt and raucous crowd, quote, "This is the people. This is the suffering people who represent the pain of the motherland, which we must reclaim. This true celebration of democracy, represented by a people who march now also to ask their officials to fulfill their duty to reach the right of the true people." Peron cemented the connection between him and laborer, stating, quote, "From today I will feel a true Argentine pride because I interpret this collective movement as the rebirth of a worker's conscience, which is the only thing that can make the country great and immortal." Finally, he pronounced that the following day, the day of the general strike, should be one of celebration, not protest. Workers, with Peron in the lead, were on the march. But very quickly, the Peronist movement transformed these subversive and spontaneous acts of support for Peron into a ritualized day of loyalty. Peron and his acolytes made the so-called Day of Loyalty a national holiday in early October 1946. The movement to turn Peronism into a civic religion was afoot. The 1951 celebration came in the wake of an attempted military putsch. Peron awarded medals to soldiers who beat back the attempted coup. The CGT, represented by laborers in their work clothes, gave them CGT medals. These acts crystallized the conflation of the Peronist movement with the state. The national holiday remained on the books until Peron's overthrow in September 1955, and it would resurface again during Peron's short-lived presidency from October 1973 to his death in July 1974. The day endures in the myth of Peron and in the minds of Peronists. It is a reference point for generations of Argentines who bristled at the encroachment by workers and non-elites in public spaces. But even more so, it is a point of pride and inclusion for millions of Argentines who subscribe to the aspirations of Peron's social democracy and the possibility of a world of dignified work and opportunity.